How's everyone doing? So, Strength Chat episode 56, and today I have got a very special guest for you. Today I am joined by a co-founder of the Cressey Sports Performance. He now owns his own facility, Core, in Boston, and is being published numerous times in magazines and websites. An all-round cool guy, Tony Gentilcore.
I'm so cool that my cat is joining us in this conversation. I don't know if you're recording the audio, the visual, but
if you're listening on Spotify, you're gonna have to go and watch on YouTube now and see the cat.
Well, thank you for having me. Glad to be on.
No worries at all. How are you doing? What have you been up to?
Yeah, I'm doing great. We just got past our first brutal cold of the winter here in Boston a few days ago, so we're thawing out at the moment, but it's sunny today. I got some reading done this morning. It's all good.
Good. So for obviously, I've spoken to you before on the Primal Academy podcast. I followed your work for quite a long time. For anyone who doesn't maybe know your background and how you've got to be in the position or where you are now, do you want to just give a little bit of a background to yourself?
Of course. I entered the industry in 2002 as a personal trainer in a commercial gym and corporate fitness. And I worked in that realm for, I want to say the first 5 years of my career. It was so long ago that I can't remember. But I started off in commercial fitness, just like your regular old personal trainer. And eventually moved to Connecticut with Eric Cressey, where we worked together at a gym there for about a year. And then we both moved to Boston in 2006, and we opened up Cressey Sports Performance in 2007. So where I kind of transitioned to the training more athletes and of that nature, particularly baseball players. But we trained a lot of athletes from a wide variety of sports. Yeah. And I was there for 8 years, where in that 8-year window, was able to train at a really kick-ass facility and also grow my own personal brand within that, where I started writing on my website, started writing for various other fitness publications, started traveling more for speaking engagements. So it was really nice that I got to kind of build my own little personal brand underneath the umbrella of Cressey Sports Performance for those 8 years. Yeah. And then I left in fall of 2015. So not too long ago, and just started my own little small studio here in Boston, where now I predominantly train general fitness population. Yeah. So, I still train some athletes here and there, but in the area of Boston that my studio is located, it's just a lot of lawyers and doctors and people who are just regular people. Yeah. And however, the bulk of people that work with me are familiar with my work. So they kind of know what they're getting themselves into. So it's not like they're walking in expecting me to like put them on a treadmill. Yeah. They know they're going to be using some barbells. So, but yeah, that's more or less what I do now. I coach about 20 hours a week, and then which allows me still enough opportunity to do some travel for speaking engagements and keep up with my writing. And I have several projects looming that I'm procrastinating on at the moment, but yeah, that's more or less the gist of my career and what I do now.
Yeah. Do you enjoy training athletes and general population? Do you enjoy training one more than the other?
I do. I mean, I definitely enjoy training both. However, I always say that I tend to lean a little bit more towards general population. Yeah. I just seem to get a little bit more fulfillment, and that just tends to be my pace. It's just general fitness population clients. Yeah. I remember I spoke at a National Strength and Conditioning Association regional meeting or regional conference about a year and a half ago. Right. And I let it slip in my presentation how when I did the transition from Cressey Sports Performance to my own, that I trained a lot of general fitness population, and not only that, I prefer it. Right. And that seemed to blow people's minds. They're like, what? Yeah. Like, I think there's this notion in the industry that you've only made it if you train professional athletes or if you only train athletes. Like, that's the pinnacle of the industry. Yeah. And I would flatly say that's wrong. I think there are many successful people in this industry who aren't training athletes and vice versa. And, a coach is a coach is a coach.
Yeah.
My job is to make people better, maybe get them a little bit stronger, move better, feel better about themselves, like get them consistent. And I'm coaching no matter what. So, but yeah, my pace generally tends to be with more general fitness population. I think a lot of that, though, is predicated on just the area that I'm in Boston. But right now I train, I think in my current client roster, I have 4 athletes, 3 of which are high school basketball players.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, there's some athletes still in there.
Yeah.
I definitely try to get my clients more athletic.
Yeah.
But I'm not necessarily training athletes per se.
Yeah. I know I did 2 internships with 2 rugby teams over here. And I always find that, when you're training athletes, it's a case of they sort of have to be there, but it's not their main goal. Obviously, their main goal is sport. And sometimes, especially within sort of that environment, you only have a limited amount of time with them unless they've come to you for an off season to get better. Whereas, having one of the highlights was I had a 60 plus year old woman coming in, and we've got a tire in the gym. She said, "I want to flip that tire." I was like, "Right, we're going to flip that tire." She got to a point where she flipped it, and it was a little bit like, "Oh yeah, that's pretty cool." That it wasn't a top level athlete or anything, just an average woman coming in. Yeah, my goal is to flip that tire right then.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's what we're going to do. So yeah, I kind of agree. Sometimes training general population is exactly as you said, a bit more fulfillment out of it.
I think too, there's a little bit of there's a variety factor too. Like when at Cressey Sports Performance, we trained a lot of baseball players, and of course, there's a lot of individualization within that population. Like no arm is the same. Like even if we're working with pitchers, like everyone's arm is different as far as what their arm slot is, like where they throw the ball and what their imbalances are and what they need to work on. Like there's definitely some individualization there. However, it could get a little monotonous, just training with a certain population and only a certain like small niche of a population. Whereas the general fitness population, I mean, I have different goals, different ability levels, different priorities, so it just sends. So from a variety standpoint, it's I get a lot of fulfillment from that as well.
And as coaches, when you mentioned at the start about if you're a coach, there's different types of coaches. It's good to have that challenge a little bit more. It makes you think a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you mentioned a little bit about when your clients know your background, when they come in, they expect to use barbells. Okay, I think one of your quotes was because heavy things won't lift themselves. Why is strength training so important for long-term health? Whether you're obviously you mentioned about the high school athletes that you've got coming in to the 60-plus-year-old woman that was coming in and wanting to flip the tire.
I think that's a very great question. It's a very broad answer. I mean, I'm sure we could spend a while answering the question like, why is strength important? I think if you attack it from several angles, it makes a lot of sense. So I do think, I mean, of course I'm biased. I'm a strength and conditioning coach. So of course I'm a little bit biased towards the strength end of the spectrum. It's important to say that when I say getting someone stronger and what strength entails, that is very subjective. So when I say I want to get somebody stronger, or I would like to get people stronger with their training, that doesn't necessarily mean I'm equating that to a YouTube video where someone's deadlifting 600 pounds off the floor. Like that's not what I'm alluding to. And I think where people get a little bit skittish is that that's what they think it is. It's like, oh man, like I'm putting a heavy barbell on my back and I'm going to squat and I'm doing all this heavy stuff. No, that is not what I'm insinuating. So again, strength is very subjective. Like, yes, of course, deadlifting 2 times body weight is strong, but so is holding a flag hold. Those people who can hold them. I was like, I can't even comprehend doing that. Like that, of course, takes a vast amount of strength to do. It's just different, and it is subjective. So I think we have to kind of have that conversation to start.
Mm-hmm.
But from a day-to-day standpoint, I do think having a base of strength is the foundation for everything else. So if someone wants to include or improve their endurance, if someone wants to improve their agility, if someone wants to improve their injury prevention, I think strength is always going to be the base of all those things. Like if you don't have a base of strength, you're not going to be able to really improve on all of those things in the first place.
Yeah.
And if you think about it from a day-to-day standpoint, I mean, what do most people do every day on a day-to-day standpoint? They're picking up their kids, they're bending over and doing that, they're pushing this, they're hoisting that. So I do think strength training better prepares people for everyday life activities.
Yeah.
Learning to hinge correctly, learning to feel the squat in the right areas of the body. Like I want them to feel their hamstrings and their glutes working, not just their knees.
Yeah.
So so in that context, I think when you tell people like, hey, strength is important because it's going to help you on everyday day-to-day activities where it isn't going to be a big deal if you have to go out and shovel the snow. Like you're not going to be exhausted at the end of that. You're just going to go do it and then move on with the rest of your day. Or it's just you're not going to be like hurt on the couch from doing it. Like strength training is going to better prepare you for that. And then, from a global standpoint too, I think strength training gives people more purpose and intent where they're training. Mm-hmm. So if we say, hey, if someone comes in and they say, hey, I would like to be able to deadlift X amount of weight, or I would like to be able to perform this many number of chin-ups, or I would like to be able to do this many push-ups, that provides intent and purpose with their training. So we know from a program design standpoint, what we're going to do. This is what the goal today and the next day and the day after that is to hit that goal. Yeah. So I do think from a programming standpoint, it gives cohesiveness and it gives people intent where they're training, which I think a lot of people lack, because a lot of people, especially this time of year, at the beginning of the year, head to a gym. I'm going to get in shape finally. And they're just kind of meandering around the gym and kind of doing a few reps of these, some arm circles over here. So I think if we kind of hone in on the strength component or a performance-based goal, it just gives people purpose with their training, which I think is a great way to keep people on point with their training overall.
When you mentioned about going back to training athletes, there's nothing wrong with training the general population as athletes. And an example I use is that, when you look at the top end, they're all in good shape, which most people want to get in, but their goals aren't I want to lose X amount of body fat or I want to gain X amount of muscle. Their goal is right. I need to get better at whatever sport they're playing, and yeah, exactly the mentality and philosophy that you've had. Be like, right, let's focus on increasing your increase your deadlift. Let's try and do a pull up or anything. And sometimes the fat and the muscle are a byproduct of that. Rather than, I think people sometimes get a little bit honed in on, oh well, I need to be this body fat percentage or I need to do this. And in terms of when you're chatting about the day-to-day activities that you do, you need strength for. Mobility is in that as well. So strength is relative and subjective, like you've said. It's different for different people. Like going back to that woman that was flipping the tire, that to her was really good. I think the tire only weighs maybe 70, 80 kilos, which doesn't sound a lot, but for a 60-plus-year-old woman who maybe weighs 60, like that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Where do you feel sometimes, because you touched on it a little bit about getting stronger isn't right, we're going to deadlift, we're going to do a 1 rep max on deadlift. Where do you feel sometimes people go wrong when it comes to strength training and the different mindset that they have around it?
Yeah, that's actually a good question too, because I think where a lot of people go wrong is they think the only way to progress is to put more weight on the bar. Yeah. And I disagree with that. Yes, I do think over the course of months and years or whatever, like you should see some form of progression as far as like how much weight you're lifting. Like I can remember back early in my lifting days when I first started training in high school and college, there was one individual that would come to the gym every day and basically do the same routine every single time I saw him, like the same routine in the same order with the same weight.
Mhm.
And I remember like coming back like 2 or 3 years later, and it was the same exercise routine with the same routine, same weight, and he looked exactly the same. And maybe, I mean, and heck, maybe that was his goal. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But so I do think over the course of months and years, like there should be like some form of progression as far as like the weight you're doing now as opposed to when you first began. However, I do think where some people get into problems is they think that the only way to progress is to put more weight on the bar at the expense of technique.
Yeah.
I think technique is paramount. I think getting people in the proper positions to be able to express their strength better is paramount.
Yeah.
And so I often talk a lot with my clients that the feel of a set is progress.
Mhm.
So if I have somebody squatting and 80 pounds is hard to them, right, for 5 reps, like that, oh my God, that was challenging in week 1, then my goal is to stay at 80 pounds for 2, 3, 4 weeks, however long it takes, and make that feel easier to the point where their technique is like immaculate. To me, that is progress. So if it takes less effort to lift a certain load, like that is progress.
Yeah.
So I think part of my job as a strength coach oftentimes is to pump the brakes with people and to say, listen, like I can appreciate that you want to put more weight on the bar. I like where your head is at. I like that a lot.
Mhm.
However, again, technique is important. We have plenty of time to get strong here. Let's really hone in on technique. And I do that a lot with my young athletes too. Like I have, 14, 15, 16-year-olds who like to hop on YouTube and they see all these insurmountable feats of strength.
Yeah.
And they're, oh, that's really cool. I want to be able to do that. And they think more is better. And I was like, no, you're 15. Like I'm not one of those people that thinks that strength training is going to stunt growth and that is bad. That's not what I'm alluding to, but sometimes even with them, I have to pump the brakes and be like, listen, we have your entire high school career to get you strong. Right now is all about technique and making sure that you're doing stuff well. So again, that's kind of what my mentality is when it comes to that topic.
And as well, if clients end up going a little bit off the leash, if you like, they can end up hurting themselves, and then instead of getting stronger, you're going to spend, a certain amount of time getting them back to that point where they hurt themselves. What are your thoughts on? Because I know quite a lot of people have come in where they're looking for a program or coaching, and I'll always ask what training have they done before. So it might be, I've done 5x5, or I do 3 sets of 10 on everything. Do you, by judging progress by weight on the bar, do you use rep ranges? Would you recommend using rep ranges? What are your thoughts on, or how do you go about asking about their previous training beforehand?
I mean, I of course, I think that's important information to get, to ask, like, what have you done before? What have you worked with a trainer before? What did he or she have you do? Yeah. As far as like how I approach rep ranges, I like them all. Like I think it's important to train a variety of rep ranges. Yeah. On one hand, I do think linear periodization works, where as the weeks progress, you do less sets and go heavier loads. Like that works. Yeah. But so does undulated periodization, where we have kind of like either weekly or daily fluctuations in training volume, where you might go high rep one day, lower rep the next day. So I think there's value in training all of them. Mm-hmm. However, me personally, like I'm not a big fan of high rep deadlifting, high rep squatting. Yeah. I just think once fatigue gets into the mix, like technique breaks down, and we're just kind of predispose people to injury. Yeah. It's just like risk reward on my end. Yeah. So if I had to kind of give like an overview of my program design, like I usually say, okay, each day has a money exercise or like a main lift. Yeah. So it might be a squat, it might be a deadlift, it might be a chin up, it might be a row, like whatever. So, and usually with that's going to be the strength exercise of the day. So that might be working up the triples. It might be doing sets of 5, but very rarely, at least with general population, am I concerned with 1 rep maxes. Like I'm not doing that. Sometimes it's percentage based off of like a perceived 1 rep max, what have you. So there's always going to be some kind of money exercise of the day. And then the subsequent exercises are probably just going to, depending on how many days a week they're training, are going to complement that original lift. So then I have to figure out, okay, is there a technique flaw or is there a weakness with that lift? And if so, my accessory movements or whatever exercises I do after that are going to address that. And that's usually going to be like higher rep ranges, more sets, lots of rows, push-ups, single leg work, what have you. And then again, I'm from a week to week standpoint, there might be 1 extra set per week, or like the rep ranges go up or down. So, there's no one right answer here. I think it all works. But I think from a global standpoint, that's kind of more or less how I approach program design.
Yeah, I think the whole question of, so how many reps do I need to do to get stronger, or how many sets I need to do? If you keep, dropping the reps, increasing the weight, it's going to happen. What I like to use is for the other exercises, whether it be push-ups or pull-ups, or whether it's a bodyweight exercise, is have an actual rep range within those. So it might work to 8 to 12 reps, and then you see a little bit more progress. Have you, you mentioned about when people come and work with you, they obviously know your background about getting involved in strength training. From maybe starting out as a coach, because I think everyone's mindset has changed a little bit to everyone needs a little bit of strength training, as opposed to, oh no, I'm not going to get stronger, I'm going to get a little bit too big, or whatever it might be. Have you had any dealings where someone's come in for training and don't really say, oh no, I just want conditioning or anything like that? Such as a prime example is runners. So I'm just gonna run. They're not gonna do any strength training. I've trained runners; they've got stronger, and the times are better. So, what are your thoughts on maybe changing people's mindsets towards strength training, or maybe adding in a little bit of strength training?
Yeah, Boston is a very endurance heavy community because of the marathon. So I definitely worked with runners in the past myself. I do think I'm in a little bit of a bubble because I do have a name in the industry and I've been around for a while. I don't really have to do much selling as far as my services. And most of the time, whenever I am working with runners, they're coming to me because a physical therapist referred them to me. And they're starting to see the value in, adding in a little bit of strength training. To answer your question, if I have somebody come in saying, oh, I just want to work on my running and I'm not really interested in strength training, I just want to do whatever. I might say, well, maybe I'm not the best fit for you. So that might come into play. But what probably ends up happening is it's my job to educate them. Like I just try to tell them, like, listen, getting stronger isn't really about it isn't about who can go the longest. It is about who can, as far as marathons, it is about who can finish the race first. And how you're going to improve is how you're going to put more force into the ground to get yourself to propel forward. You're coming with me with this laundry list of injuries and this vicious cycle of getting hurt all the time. So usually if I start to reframe it that way, and I'm just like, I know, and I'll reiterate to them, like, I understand you don't care about deadlifting 200 pounds. Like that is not my goal for you, but I do want you to be able to hip hinge and get stronger in that movement, squatting, what have you. It's going to help your running economy. It's going to take less effort to do the same distance. And once you start talking in that type of verbiage, they tend to be like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like it's like I'm interested in making you're giving you more horsepower in your engine. That's where the strength training comes from. And if you put it in that vernacular, it tends to resonate. Where I'm not trying to win an argument. Like I'm on their side. Like I've learned that the more I've been coaching. Whereas early in my career, I would have been like, oh, this is stupid. Like, it's my way. Like, I would kind of argue with people.
Yeah.
That doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I'm not trying to win an argument. But if I just do it upon myself to educate and to say, well, here's why I think it will help you. Why don't we give it a try? And if they do that and they do what I tell them to do, usually good things end up happening. I think that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely. It was interesting just because a key phrase there was, look, with strength training will help your performance a little bit more. It seems to be that, the more endurance based, a couple of times football or soccer players, if you like, have come, oh no, well, I just need to be faster or anything like that. And we touched on it at the start. You need to be stronger if you want to get faster, if you want to improve your agility. On flipping that on its head of people coming in and their training has been, they just want to, go heavy all the time, again, with a little bit of an education on that. If they obviously they've come in, they've stated, look, I want to hit this, I want to hit that on certain lifts. How do you sort of keep their interest without pushing them to their limit, if they're like, or reining them in a little bit, if that makes sense?
I mean, I always say, like, you're only going to get as strong as how well you allow yourself to recover.
Mm-hmm.
So again, to me, like, when I get an individual coming in who's very type A and wants to be crushed every session, wants to like lift heavy and go and like just like get after it every single session, part of me is very welcoming of that, because I respect and appreciate their mentality, but I do kind of have to pull in the reins and pump the brakes a little bit. And like, I'm a big advocate. I think sub-maximal training is very underappreciated in the industry. I think I always tell easy training is good training. That might have been a quote I got from Dan John.
Yeah.
But to me, like, if I get someone to the point where they leave a session more often than not, if they leave a session feeling refreshed and that they could do more, that to me is good.
Yeah.
They're probably going to recover from that, assuming that they're not eating like a jerk and that they're getting enough calories and they're getting enough sleep and whatnot, and there's not too much stress in their life. They're probably going to recover from that session and come back and be able to nail their next session. So to me, again, if I just keep reframing it in that context and just keep repeating it, and I can prove it to them. I can say, look, here's month 1 of your programming. These are the numbers you were doing.
Yeah.
Here's month 6. Everything is up. Something is working. Like, and they're like, oh yeah, okay. Like, and I think I might have discussed this with you in the past too, where another way I reframe it is something that Paul Carter talks a lot. And Paul Carter is a strength coach that writes a lot for T Nation. And he talks about this whole notion of like 80% workouts. So meaning that 10% of the time, you're going to come into the gym feeling great. Those are the days that you hit PRs and you crush the weights and you feel like a rock star and it's like everything flies off the floor and it's great. 10% of the time you feel like garbage. It's just like, oh, I don't want to be here. Everything feels heavy. That happens. 80% of the time, you're just going to go in, do your reps, do the work, and leave. Those are the workouts that matter. That's doing the work. And if you're consistent with that, again, good things are going to happen. So again, if that's the message that I keep reiterating to my clients and my athletes, eventually it will sink in. And they'll get it. So and yes, I understand that sometimes there's days where, it's okay to crush them. But it doesn't happen all that often.
Yeah, I think sometimes, if you're writing a certain weight down, if they've got the program, it's a case of, right, I want you to do 5 or 8 reps. That doesn't mean a 5 or 8 rep max. It just means you're doing that. Walk out of the gym feeling good. Don't crawl out of the gym, dragging your spine behind you, thinking, "Oh my God, that workout was hell." Because I do think that touching on sort of strength, helping with mindset, if you are stronger, if you have a good workout, it does I do feel as though people who are stronger carry themselves a little bit more. It does clear their mind a little bit more. Because as well, an example is when for the powerlifting club that I run, seeing progress on the bar and knowing what they can do to get better and having that routine, if you like, just helps with their mindset. Just, because it's not, going right back to basics, just increasing it by, I don't know, 2.5 kilos a week or 1.25 kilos, whatever it might be. They're getting better, and it's an outlet from other stresses that they might have. That's why I like strength training, because you can see progress, you can see better. And then if you are, like you mentioned, shoveling snow, and that's easier, it's like, oh well, I don't have to go and sit down for an hour because my back's in bits.
Yeah, and I think another thing to note too is and you've probably dealt with this too, where you get clients that get easily discouraged when they don't hit a certain number. Like, oh, I was able to do this. I was able to deadlift this 2 months ago, and now it's harder. And you got to reiterate something that strength is not linear.
Yeah.
There's going to be peaks and valleys, and that's just the way it is. Like, you're not just always going to hit PRs. So a lot of times I have a few clients that, they get discouraged where it's like, oh, well, 3 months ago, like, this weight was pretty easy, and now it's challenging. Well, it's like, well, we haven't been prioritizing that lift. So that could be coming in the mix. Not to mention you have just other life stressors that might be in the mix. But then again, strength is not linear. There's always going to be peaks and valleys. But as long as you see a upward trend over the long haul, that's kind of what we're after. So keeping that in context too is important with clients.
Yeah, absolutely. So you moving on to we touched on it a little bit, like everyone is different in terms of what exercises they may do. Strength is subjective. Not everyone has to squat, bench, and deadlift. You put an article out there that everyone should deadlift, but in terms of everyone should hinge. Yes. When people come in, I think the concept, everyone thinks that they have to do a back squat, or they have to do a barbell bench press, or they have to deadlift from the floor. What are your thoughts? Can you get as strong doing variations of those lifts, as strong as those variations of those lifts? And what are your go-to variation lifts of the big compound lifts?
So to answer your question, yes. People can get stronger. And I have, sometimes I just have to tell people, you have to be real with people and be like, listen, you're not a powerlifter. You're not competing. Who gives a shit if we're pulling a barbell off the ground? Like, it does not matter. Like, the internet, who cares? It doesn't matter. My objective with you is to, yes, get you to deadlift, but in a way that's safe, that's efficient, and puts you in the best positions possible. Yeah. And if that means we have to use a trap bar, then so be it. If that means I have to elevate a straight bar a little bit and do a block pull, so be it. It's like whatever puts you in a better position to hold a neutral back position and not round your back when we're lifting the weight, and your hips are doing the work and not your lower back. Yeah. We're good. With a squat, again, we don't have to put a barbell on your back. It could be a front squat. It could be a goblet squat. It could be a landmine squat. It could be any other form of squatting variations we can think of. So my job as a coach is to do the assessments and take their injury history into consideration, take their goals into consideration, take their body type and leverages into consideration. Yeah. And then take all of that and try to figure out what iteration of those lifts are going to be the best fit for them, giving all of that information. That's my job as the coach. And then from there, yes, we can figure out, okay, how are we going to progress it? Is it adding more sets and reps? Is it adding load? Is it maybe adding a pause? Maybe doing tempo? Like, there's many ways to progress lifts. Yeah. And then down the road, if we're addressing any mobility restrictions or stability restrictions, maybe down the road we can do a back squat, or we can play around with a conventional deadlift. But I'm not married to the notion that that's my expectation right out of the gate, because that's just silly.
Yeah. So in terms of programming, because I've had it before, or you'll see people training in the gym, or they'll come and, oh well, I have done a conventional deadlift. I do a back squat. That's sort of like the norm, if you like, or that's what people think they should be doing, like you mentioned. For your programming, is the end product maybe doing a trap bar deadlift or a hex bar deadlift? Do you only go to the normal lifts of a back squat and a conventional or sumo deadlift if the client asks? Or is it a case of, right, we're doing trap bar deadlifts just because, the likelihood of hurting your back, unless we're going crazy heavy, is unlikely? How does that affect your programming and the direction you go with your clients?
So I think there's two ways I approach it. It depends on the individual. So, because sometimes I do have to play bad cop and be like, listen, trap bar deadlift is home base for you. We're not doing anything other than a trap bar deadlift ever. Because again, cost benefit, past injury history, like goals, like sometimes I have to play bad cop and just be like, trap bar deadlift. Mm-hmm. Outside of that, there are standards that I have, because sometimes I do think there's a lot of value in giving people like a gym goal in terms of like a standard. So I'll say I generally start people off with a kettlebell deadlift, just to learn. Like, that's a pretty safe way. They're over the kettlebells. It isn't very aggressive in terms of the weight. It's just an easier way to learn the deadlift. Mm-hmm. And I'll say, you're going to use that until you can do the beast, which is 97 pounds, that you can do that 5 times. Well. Some people can do that on day 1. Some people, they can do it in week 2. Some people are there for 2 months. But I'd say the goal is you're going to lift that 5 times well before we graduate to a Romanian deadlift or a trap bar. And then once that kind of motivates them, be like, oh, they kind of know, like, okay, this is where we're heading. So I do find there's a lot of value in that. And then when they're able to complete performing the beast for 5 reps, it's like, okay, now we're going to go trap bar. Say we're on trap bar deadlifts now. Then I'm like, okay, I want you to deadlift your body weight, the equivalent of your body weight, 5 times before we even think about adding a straight bar. And sometimes I get really mean. I say, we're going to stay with the trap bar until you can deadlift twice your body weight, at least once, before we move to a straight bar. And again, that gives them some sort of like, okay, Tony, I'm gonna prove you wrong. I'm gonna do it. They're gonna work to that. So sometimes if I give them a set list of standards, that kind of helps with honing, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Again, pumping the brakes as far as their expectation with a straight bar. Once they prove to me that they can do those things, then we can have a conversation with a straight bar if that's something they still want to play around with. I was like, cool. Like, because if someone gets to the point where they're deadlifting twice their body weight with a trap bar, the likelihood they're probably going to be successful with a straight bar is much higher. They're pretty confident with the lift as far as like the trap bar. So they got some level of strength there and body control and awareness that if I put a straight bar in front of them, which is a different lift, they're probably not going to hurt themselves. So again, it's just setting them up for as much success as possible.
I kind of liken it to, I don't know why, it's funny what you think about when you're saying of the next levels of of progressing the exercises, like a game of Mario or whatever game it might be, and you unlock the next level. Right now, the boss that you've got to beat at the end is the bodyweight trap bar deadlift or whatever it may be, because sometimes I find that when people come in, I'm going to get involved in strength training and some weight training, they start at the end product of the back squat and the deadlift rather than, and walk, as we mentioned about training, walking out the gym and the back's hurting a little bit, taking a couple of steps back, starting a couple of levels back to then progress and have better results in the long term is sometimes better than, diving straight in and hurting themselves.
And I do think that's where like specialty bars come into play too. So I have a safety squat bar, I have a Duffalo bar, I have a trap bar. So even having access to those type of bars could kind of be like if I have somebody do a safety squat bar, it's kind of like fake back squatting. Technically, the bar is on their back, but their shoulder mobility, they're actually holding it in the front. So, so I do think there's a lot of advantages to having specialty bars in the mix too, because then at least that gives them the feeling that they're doing something badass, but it's not quite that badass.
For just on a little bit of a tangent, it just made me think. So we have a safety bar at the gym that I work at, and a guy came in, and I think it was actually his collarbone that he dislocated. Mm-hmm. So when he goes to put a bar on his back, when he's done it before, he has to have his hands really, really wide. So, he can't get a little bit of tension on his upper back. So when he loads the bar up quite heavy, he tends to fall forward a little bit. So I said, right, let's use a safety bar. It's tucked in a little bit. You don't have to hands wide. It's not uncomfortable on your shoulders. He said, oh yeah, but that's not a real squat. Why? When can I go on to some real training? And it's like, well, you are still squatting. Because he calls it a jetpack bar. He said, "Oh, I look like I'm just trying, going to fly a jetpack." How do you sort of? Obviously, you've mentioned before about talking through the process. Have you ever experienced anything like that?
Honestly, how I would approach something like that is I'd probably laugh with him about it, like, "Oh yeah, haha." I'd probably just kind of roll with the punches. But just be like, listen, this is what's going to set you up for success. This is going to be the best fit. And let's be real, you're not competing, so it doesn't matter. Yeah. But I would definitely keep it lighthearted. Again, I'm not trying to win an argument. I'm not trying to win a conversation. And I'm sure that's kind of how you approached it too. It's a jet. I think it's kind of funny that it says a jetpack. That's actually pretty funny. So I just think if you keep it lighthearted and and I think if your clients know that you have their best interest in mind, they're going to get it.
Yeah. I think it's not the idea of it, like you've mentioned as a coach, is to get them to their end product. I always say I wouldn't give anything. The idea isn't to make you look stupid. The idea, you've come, you want to get stronger, getting stronger, and you're getting stronger using the safety bar or the trap bar. Once things are in place, like you've mentioned, then start looking at the conventional deadlift or anything like that. So the other topic that sort of it was actually I saw you post it. It was either last week or a couple of weeks ago. Exercises that provide more bang for their buck, if you like. Exercises that you should be doing. So one of them was, I think it was the anti-flexion squat, which I actually tried, and it's a lot harder than what I thought it was going to be. Why do you think exercises that provide more bang for their buck are important? Because I think sometimes, like I mentioned about when people or general population come into the gym, right? I need to back squat, I need to deadlift, and I need to bench or whatever it is. I think sometimes people think that they're a little bit of a gimmick and they don't actually have a reason behind it. So why do you think they're important, and why do you say, I think people should be doing this because it's a good exercise?
So with regards to the anti-flexion squat, I think the question, I don't want to put words in your mouth, is why something that's a little bit more novel, or different, why I would include an exercise like that as opposed to the one, which is front squat. So with that exercise, and if people can picture it, it's I'm wrapping a band around a barbell, an easy curl bar, and the other end of the band is under my feet, and I'm curling the bar against the band with the band underneath my feet, and we're squatting in that position. Why I like that exercise is it definitely gets people to feel their core. Because I find with back squatting and front, maybe not so much with front squatting, but with back squatting, a lot of times people just don't feel their abs and they don't feel their core working, just all lower back. So at least with the anti-flexion squat and it providing a bang for our buck, is we are training the squat pattern. It is a squat. We are sitting back into our hips and squatting down. But it's also building context as far as like getting people to feel what it's like to get that flexion moment, get the ribs down, and get the abs on to create more stability to squats.
Yeah.
And with that exercise in particular, I loved it because when I stole it from my buddy Robert Linkle, I just so happened to have two of my in-season basketball players come in for their training session that day, and I was like, this would be a brilliant way, because they're in season, to train the squats but not crush their spine, or because they had a game the night before and like they were just not feeling great.
Yeah.
So it's like, this would be a great way of like getting a lot of bang for my buck, quote unquote, as far as like training the squat, getting the core on. And yeah, I mean, for the meatheads in the crowd, like, it's a bicep curl paired with a squat. So that was kind of where my mind was there. And I'm with you. Like, I don't like gimmicky looking exercises. I don't like exercises that take more time to set up than to actually to execute.
Yeah.
So I do take in consideration like how cumbersome it is to set up an exercise, as far as like, am I gonna include this into a program? Because if it takes two people just to get you into the position to set it up, like,
yeah,
I can appreciate the value of the exercise, but it takes 5 minutes just to like get into the right position to do it. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
So something with the anti-flexion squat, I mean, it's a pretty straightforward exercise, and we are accomplishing quite a few things with it. So that's kind of where my headspace is when it comes to exercises like that.
I think with the for anyone who hasn't seen that, by the way, I wasn't sure what it was. Check out Tony's website; it's on there, and give it a go. It is a good exercise. I think sort of two points on that. People will look at exercises on like you mentioned, look on the internet and think, oh, I need to do that crazy exercise. Whereas there is a reason behind.
That's the big thing, is like when I include an exercise like that, which it's a pretty novel looking exercise, and I always think to myself, I'm dumb for never thinking of it. That's why I always steal exercises from everyone else. I do need to have a rationale for why I'm using it. I'm not just gonna, oh, this is cool, and I'm doing it because it looks cool. Like, no, I need to have a handful of reasons or rationale. They don't have to be like Einstein level explanations, but I should be able to explain, this is why I'm doing this exercise with this particular person. And I get, like, the industry is very trainers, coaches, and people who are just into fitness. It's very much a shiny object industry. I think John Rustin talked about this recently, where it's like it's like, oh, bright shiny object over here, I'm going to do that now. We need to have a reason for doing this. I think that's where you were going. I'm sorry I cut you off.
No, that's absolutely. I mean, a lot of people I'll speak to is, oh, I want to try this, and I'm sort of, I'm all for giving things a go, but there's, I always try and relate it to sort of school. There's sort of core subjects. You need to learn how to read. You need to learn how to write. That's sort of like the barbell stuff, the strength training. That's your bread and butter. Then from there, if you want to do whatever else, let's do that. Near the end of the session, what you pointed out of some of the exercises to teach people where to feel it. An example is it was powerlifting club last night, and we were doing just so happened that we were doing deadlifts, and I always like to say, where are you feeling that? Well, I'm feeling it here, or I'm feeling it there. Right. Well, that's not where you're supposed to be, not supposed to be feeling it. So variations of exercises, and those novel exercises, if you like, I think it is a big part of making people aware of where they're feeling exercises, a little bit more body awareness, if you like, to make them feel a little bit better and then feel stronger. Because when they feel it where they're supposed to be feeling it, and they end up lifting, and they put more weight on the bar in the terms of the powerlifting club, it's like, oh yeah, that's really good, and then it gives them a little bit of motivation. On the topic of programming for these novel exercises, if you like. How do you go about programming them?
Something like that. I mean, that was actually their A1 exercise for the day. Something like the anti-flexion squat, because I mean, we're not loading it super heavy. I mean, depending on the tension of the band, it's going to depend. But that was just more or less like turning stuff on, and that kind of bled into their trap bar deadlift that went afterwards. So I mean, we can make a case for using exercises like that as kind of like an extended warm up.
Yeah.
Leading into like their main lift of the day. But we can also make a case of putting something like that towards the end of a session when they kind of expended all of their motor learning and nervous system intent at the beginning of a session, like doing the exercises that take a little bit more focus, whether it's the Olympic lifts, whether it's a squat, whether it's a deadlift. It takes a little bit more mental gymnastics to really get those down right. And then something like a anti-flexion squat or more of these novel exercises can be done more towards down the tail end, because they don't take quite as much mental energy to perform. But then we can also make a case that for some people they could take a lot of mental energy and it goes more. So again, that's a tough one to answer because it just depends. Because you can make a case for beginning of a routine, in the middle, towards the end. So I guess the true answer is going to be like, take the individual in perspective and trying to fit in what their goals are, and then go from there.
I think for me, some of the times it's for a little bit of variation, a little bit of fun.
Sure. That's definitely a thing. Yep.
Yeah. Just because, obviously we've mentioned about there's certain things that you have in the program to keep working through, the bread and butter, if you like, but not overriding the fact that you still need to hinge, you still need to squat. Do all that.
Yeah, I mean, there oftentimes I'll take the last 5 or 10 minutes of a session and kind of make it like a free for all. Where it's like, okay, well, you get to pick the body part. Like, you're not going to pick the exercises. You can pick the body part or the area that you'll like want to do, and then I'll write it up on the whiteboard. Okay, like guys like to do gun show. So
I'm just about to say, how many times do you have people coming in and saying, I just want to do arms, just wanted to finish the session with arms?
Well, that's at the tail end. So you got 10 minutes. Okay, I'll write it up. A lot of my female clients like to do more glute work. So, I'll say, okay, here's what we're going to do. So I do think there's a lot of value in doing that with clients, like just kind of having fun with training. That definitely is a way of keeping them more engaged and loyal to you as the coach.
Yeah. I think as well, keeping it true to the sort of the topic of strength. There's so many fun things that you can do with strength. You look at strong. All right, you're not going to lift crazy amount of weights like strongman are doing, but people like doing, because an element of people who come in for conditioning, not everyone wants to do sit on the rower or do the bike or prowler or anything. Doing strongman medleys is good. There's so many different avenues to go down when it comes to strength.
It's infinite.
With the novel exercises and exercises that provide more bang for their buck, obviously you've posted quite a lot of exercises. Do you have any favourites or the ones that you like to throw into programs?
As far as that kind of stuff, oh man, lately I've been doing more Copenhagen side planks.
Okay.
Not that that's like super novel, but I've been adding in. I mean, I see a lot of overlap with that exercise fitting in with general pop and my athletes as far as like keeping their knees healthy and adductor strength up to task, and so I've been adding in. I've been using those a lot lately. That's funny because there's been times where I've forgotten about an exercise that I used to put in like a bunch of programs like 4 or 5 years ago, and then they kind of make a reemergence with current programs. But yeah, the Copenhagen side plank, the anti-flexion squat's been in there since I learned it a couple weeks ago. But I mean, I will say, generally speaking, me personally as a coach, like I'm pretty vanilla when it comes to my exercises. Uh, uh, I wouldn't say like I throw in a ton of variety and a ton of novelty.
Yeah.
But every now and then, like, that's why there's people like Megan Calloway and Joel Seedman and Lee Boyce and all those guys who are like very, very, their brains just work differently than me.
Yeah.
As far as like the exercises they come up with. So that's why I always like cruising their Instagram. It's like, oh, I'll see an exercise they put up, and I'm always thinking like, who could I use that with? Like where do I see value in it? Like what clients I have that would be a good fit for.
Yeah.
So I don't know that unfortunately I'm not very creative in that when it comes to exercises.
I'm glad I'm not the only one that sort of the two people that you mentioned. It was actually funny today. I had a little bit of a break and was scrolling through and looking at the different exercises that they use, and like, right, okay, that looks.
Yeah, it's I do. I mean, I'm not gonna like lie. Like from a programming standpoint, I certainly will go to other people's Instagrams and like, because sometimes you program from somebody so long that you're like, oh, what the hell am I gonna do with this person this month? So sometimes I have to be like, okay, I'm going to use this exercise. Like I see value in it. Like this would be a good fit for them. I'm going to plug it in. Certainly I'm not unabashed in saying that I'm perfect. I'm like this all like knowing God of a coach, and I'm not stealing exercises just for the sake of stealing them. But there are many coaches that I'm like, they're like, I'm good. Like I'm creative when it comes to writing. Like but when it comes to like drumming up cool exercises, I'm horrible.
Yeah. I think how I like to say things is that the reason why I'll be programming this is because it works. It might not be the most exciting thing in the world, I think, or I like to think this anyway. If my clients are listening and they turn around and say it's not like that in sessions at all, I like to make the sessions fun. But the goal is, look, the barbell work and that sort of stuff. It'll work. It'll get you where you want to be, and the exercises that we'll throw in there, like you said, depending on the person, will be depending where you use them, whether it be a primer for the main lift, or a little bit of fun at the end.
My programming is pretty boring. I remember even when I was at Cressey Sports Performance, like coaches would always come in to observe for the day, and they would always gravitate to the programming wall where all the athletes picked out their programs, and they always wanted to look at the programs. And I can remember several times where people would be like, oh, really? Like, I do that. And it's like, yeah, like we're not doing anything profound. We're just making sure people are doing the basic stuff well. Yeah. I think that's what I mean when I say I'm a very vanilla coach. Like I know I'm a good coach, but I'm not really that interested in throwing that much novelty into a program. It's like I just want people to do the simple stuff well, because that is the foundation. Like your analogy of you got to learn to read and write before you do calculus is very spot on. Like that's kind of what I view myself as the coach, is like I'm teaching the reading and writing, before they can move on to the more, I guess, sexy stuff.
I think that thing of it's not sexy, but it works. Like on the topic of the end product of deadlifting and back squatting, everyone wants the new fantangled rep scheme, or a couple of times there was like cluster sets. That was a thing at the minute. Or not so long ago, asking what are cluster, and that was mainly because I had them programmed, because I compete in powerlifting. Awful things, but it's making you lift heavier weights for a few more reps on clusters. But when it comes to general population coming in who are just looking to get stronger for daily life, you don't need to do clusters. Are you getting stronger? What you're doing? Yes. Is this all I'm doing? Are you getting stronger? Yes. Right, then this is what we're going to do, and then like you mentioned, let's have a gun show at the end of the workout, or let's do some glutes or anything, and that's as myself as a coach that I've used with my clients, following your mindset of keeping it simple and not going absolutely crazy. You know, that's what works. And for me, seeing what other people are doing, that, you know, they aren't. It's not these. You always think that you look at the coaches that you follow, that they've got this magic formula, or what's the magic exercise that they're doing that I don't know about. So obviously we have covered quite a lot of topics on there. You know, it's probably a little bit of a different chat compared to the powerlifters or the strongmen that might be listening. But for the general population, people looking to get stronger, do you have any take-home points or top tips for the general population, people looking to be a badass?
It's all about consistency. I always say the best set and rep scheme is 3x52, where it's get to the gym 3 days a week, 52 weeks out of the year, and some good stuff's going to happen. So the true answer to all this is just consistency. Show up and do the work, and good things will happen.
Yeah, I think that's a nice little thing to finish on. You know, just coming in and doing a 1 rep max and then spending another week off because you've hurt yourself. Exactly the point that you've said. You know, that 80%, come in, do your work, and keep doing that, and, you know, good things will happen. So for everyone listening who, you know, for the exercises that you should be doing that you post out there, or if people want to see any of the articles that you put out there, where can people find you or get in contact with you?
That would be my website, which is just my name. It's TonyGentilcore.com, and that's my blog. That's articles. That's social media, speaking engagements, all that. So that would be where they should go.
For everyone listening, 100% look at the stuff that Tony puts out there. I know it's helped me quite a lot. Thanks a lot for taking the time to chat with me. I enjoyed the very first time I spoke to you. I've enjoyed it again today. I hope everyone enjoyed that as much as I did. And I will see you all next week.